The church lobby smelled faintly of old wood polish and candles, the kind of smell that clung to your clothes even after you left. People in their Sunday best gathered in small groups, shaking hands, sharing polite smiles. Children clutched hymnals. Families moved together, tight units of warmth and chatter. But not mine. My family sat proudly on the long wooden bench near the center of the lobby. My sister, Allison, in her new pastel dress, sat between Mom and Dad, her hands folded neatly, her posture perfect like she was posing for a picture. Dad had his arm stretched along the backrest, nodding at anyone who glanced our way, while Mom leaned in to whisper to neighbors about Allison's upcoming piano recital. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. And me? I approached slowly, clutching the strap of my worn bag. My dress was faded at the seams, borrowed from Allison 2 years ago, already too tight at the waist. I had spent all morning trying to smooth out the wrinkles. My shoes were scuffed, my hair tied back in a simple knot. I knew I didn't fit the picture they wanted to show, but I was still their daughter. I still thought maybe, just maybe, they'd let me sit with them this time. I slid toward the end of the bench, lowering myself carefully, hoping not to draw attention. But Dad's arm shot out before I could settle. His hand pressed hard against my shoulder, shoving me back so roughly my bag slipped to the floor. Not here, he growled, loud enough for people nearby to hear. His face hardened, his jaw clenched. Pigs don't sit with believers. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. The words cut too deep, too sharp. The room went quieter as a few heads turned. My chest burned, my throat closing up as I froze in place. "Dad," I whispered, my voice barely audible. His glare silenced me. Mom chuckled from the other side of the bench, her voice dripping with venom. "Be grateful it wasn't worse. He could have dragged you out. Don't make a scene." Allison smirked, adjusting her dress, tilting her chin higher as if her halo had just grown brighter by comparison. "Dad's right," she muttered, not even looking at me. "You don't belong here. You make us look cheap." I stood there, my hands shaking at my sides, feeling the weight of every eye on me. Families whispered, some trying not to stare, others openly watching the drama unfold. My stomach twisted as laughter from the corner echoed boys from my old school snickering behind their hymnals. Dad leaned back, reclaiming his space on the bench as though nothing had happened. "Find another seat, Rachel. You embarrass us enough already. Don't do it in God's house." I wanted to scream, to cry, to sink into the floor, but my legs moved on their own. I bent down, picked up my bag, and turned away. My vision blurred as I walked toward the far end of the lobby, my footsteps hollow against the tile. I sat on a lone chair near the bulletin board, as far from them as possible. My heart pounded so loudly I couldn't hear the choir practicing in the background. My hands gripped the strap of my bag until my knuckles ached. Mom's laughter carried across the lobby again. She should be thankful we even let her inside. The words wrapped around me, suffocating, echoing in my head. "Pigs don't sit with believers. Be grateful it wasn't worse." People around them smiled awkwardly, pretending not to hear, but I saw the flickers in their eyes. Some pitied me, some judged me. Most just turned away. I wanted to disappear, but instead, I stared at the family bench at their perfect little picture. Mom, Dad, Allison, polished, admired, accepted. And then there was me, exiled to the shadows. That humiliation should have broken me. It should have been another scar added to the dozens they'd already carved. But as I sat there, chest heaving, shame clawing at me, something else began to rise inside. A voice, steady and cold. "Listen, remember, don't cry here. Don't give them the satisfaction." I lowered my head, hiding my face so they wouldn't see the storm in my eyes. They thought I'd stay small, stay silent, stay humiliated. But sitting on that lonely chair, I made myself a promise. This wasn't the end of their cruelty, but it would be the beginning of their downfall. They had chosen the church lobby to make me a public disgrace. I would choose a place just as public to make sure everyone saw who they really were. And when that time came, it wouldn't be me begging for a seat. It would be them, scrambling for a place they'd never get back. The service ended, but the sting of their words followed me out into the cool afternoon air. Families clustered together on the church steps, shaking hands with the pastor, sharing smiles over Sunday lunch plans. I stood alone near the parking lot, clutching my bag like a shield, while my parents basked in attention. Mom leaned in close to a group of women, her voice carrying, "Allison is such a blessing. She's everything we prayed for. We're so proud to have one child who truly honors us." Her eyes flicked toward me, standing by myself. The women's smiles faltered, some of them following her gaze. One muttered something under her breath, and they all laughed. Dad clapped his hand on Allison's shoulder, his booming voice echoing, "She's the one worth bragging about. The other one? Let's just say, every family's got its burden." Laughter again, cruel, hollow, echoing inside my skull. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I stood still, letting the shame settle like cement. Because the more I let it sink in, the heavier it became, and the heavier it became, the more power I felt building under it. On the drive home, Dad turned the radio up loud, belting along to the hymns like he hadn't just called me a pig in front of half the congregation. Mom scrolled through her phone, showing Allison photos people had posted online from the service. "Look at you," she cooed. "Perfect posture, perfect smile, the kind of daughter people envy." Allison leaned her head against Mom's shoulder, smirking at me in the rearview mirror. "And then there's you, slouched in the back like a stray they let in to keep warm." I pressed my forehead against the cool glass of the window and let her words burn. Every insult was a brand, and every brand was fuel. When we got home, I went straight to my room. My walls were bare except for a small corkboard where I pinned Scrap's old notes, overheard lines, fragments of their cruelty I'd scribbled down so I wouldn't forget. That night, I added a new one. "Pigs don't sit with believers. Be grateful it wasn't worse. Every family's got its burden." The board was filling up. My storage of their venom was growing heavier, but instead of drowning me, it steadied me. In the weeks that followed, church became my weekly humiliation. The next Sunday, Dad deliberately pointed me toward the folding chairs at the back, away from the family bench. "You'll be more comfortable there," he said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Mom smirked, adding, "She should be thankful she's even inside. Trash usually belongs outside." Allison leaned close, whispering just loud enough, "People are starting to notice. They're finally seeing you the way we do." And they weren't wrong. People did notice. I could feel the pitying glances, hear the murmurs. Some were disgusted, some were entertained. But either way, it was fuel. At home, the cruelty didn't stop. Dad would shove his plate at me after meals, barking, "Clean this up, storage." Mom left piles of laundry in my room without asking, muttering, "At least pigs are good for something." Allison filmed little clips of me scrubbing floors, captioning them "maid service" before sending them to her friends. The more they laughed, the more silent I became. I gave them nothing. No tears, no pleas, no cracks in my mask. Because while they saw silence as weakness, I knew silence was planning. I started noticing patterns. Dad cared about respect, about being seen as a man of authority, someone who commanded reverence in the community. Mom cared about appearances, about being admired for her perfect family. Allison cared about her social status, about being envied, liked, followed. Those were their weaknesses, their idols. And every idol is vulnerable when the truth comes crashing down. So I started collecting. When Dad barked cruel jokes at the dinner table, I memorized every word. When Mom gossiped about neighbors, I wrote it down. When Allison bragged online, I screenshotted everything. I became exactly what they had called me, storage, but not for their use, for mine. One night, I overheard Dad on the phone with a church elder, boasting about how both of my daughters honor me. He said it with such confidence, such arrogance, that bile rose in my throat. He painted a perfect picture of a household filled with respect, faith, love. I stared at the corkboard in my room, covered in neon post-its of their venom. "Pigs don't sit with believers. Burden, trash. Be grateful it wasn't worse. Their real words, their real selves. That night, I whispered into the dark, "If you want believers, then let them believe the truth." Because I knew what I had to do. If they wanted to strip me of dignity in public, I'd strip them of their image in the same way. And I wouldn't do it quietly. I'd make sure every person who shook their hands after service, every neighbor who nodded politely at them, every elder who praised them saw who they really were. My silence had been my weapon. Now it was time to use it. The next Sunday, the church lobby looked the same polished benches, families smiling, the same smell of old wood and candles. But something inside me was different. My bag felt heavier, not from weight, but from what I carried. Weeks' worth of proof, recordings, screenshots, notes. Their poison, stored and sharpened into a blade. I walked in a few steps behind my family. Dad swaggered toward the bench. Mom lifted her chin. Allison's heels clicked against the tile. They didn't even look back to see if I followed. When I approached the bench, I already knew what was coming. Dad's hand shot out, shoving my shoulder. His voice boomed, "Pigs don't sit with believers. Find another chair." Mom's laugh followed like a knife. "Be grateful it isn't worse, Rachel. One day we might just lock you outside altogether." Allison rolled her eyes, smirking at the group of teens behind her. She's probably used to sitting in the dirt anyway. The lobby grew quieter. People shifted, pretending not to watch, but stealing glances. The humiliation was supposed to end the same way it always did, me shrinking away, them basking in control. But this time, I didn't move. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. I tapped the screen, and suddenly, their voices, their real voices, filled the lobby. "Pigs don't sit with believers. She's trash. Be grateful it wasn't worse. Every family has its burden." The words echoed loud and clear, undeniable, carrying into every corner. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. Children froze. Gasps rippled through the room as the audio played on, each cruel sentence sharper than the last. I had recorded everything, not just one Sunday, but every insult, every humiliation, every time they thought no one else was listening. The congregation, neighbors, elders, friends stared at my parents with wide, horrified eyes. Mom's face drained of color. Dad's jaw tightened, his fists curling. Allison's smirk vanished. "Turn it off!" Dad barked, lunging toward me. I stepped back, raising the phone higher. My voice rang out steady, cutting through his fury. "No. Everyone deserves to hear the truth. You preach respect and faith, but this is what you say to your own daughter. This is who you are when the hymnals close." Whispers turned to murmurs, murmurs to shouts. One of the elders stepped forward, his face stern. "Is this real?" I looked him in the eye. Every word, weeks of it. The audio played again. "Storage. Trash. Pigs don't sit with believers." The elder's gaze shifted to my parents, sharp and condemning. The same neighbors Mom bragged to now pulled their children closer, whispering about cruelty, about hypocrisy. Mom stammered, "It was just a joke." But the elder's voice cut her off, hard as stone. "You don't joke like that. Not here, not anywhere." Dad's face burned red, his reputation shattering with every stare, every whisper. Mom tried to smile, but her lips trembled. Allison hid her face in her hands. And me? For the first time, I didn't feel small. I let the silence hang, the weight of their own words crushing them under the very roof they claimed gave them power. Then I turned, tucking the phone back into my bag. "I'm done being your storage," I said simply. And I walked out. Behind me, the lobby erupted not with laughter, but with judgment, disgust, disbelief. Their friends turned away, their supporters recoiled, their perfect family picture ripped apart in front of everyone who once believed it. They had made me a public disgrace. Now they were the ones who couldn't show their faces. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.